As tensions escalate in Iran, Israel, and Ukraine put an increased focus on defense at this G7 summit, Prime Minister Mark Carney had a one-on-one meeting with NATO's Secretary General this morning. It's been only 1 week since Carney announced plans to meet NATO's 2% of GDP defense spending target by March. And today, Carney's office said he told Mark Rutte about his plan for accelerating those investments in the years to come. Mark Rutte is the Secretary General of NATO, and he joins me now. Secretary General, it's good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure to be on the program.
I saw in your conversation with Prime Minister Mark Carney today, you praised Canada for finally developing a plan to get to the 2%. Some of that including capacity for things like the Coast Guard. So I'm wondering what new support that truly brings to the alliance with this target finally being met.
Well, this is really a big announcement. Let's not underestimate it. It means that Canada will reach the 2% this year, which is great news because it was originally foreseen after 2030. Last week, Portugal also announced it will reach 2% this year. And by Portugal also making that announcement, we now have the whole of the alliance, all 32 countries, the whole of the alliance at 2% before the summit in The Hague next week. Whilst at the beginning of the year, we had still 8 countries not making the 2%. So this is really great news.
Well, Canada is getting there 11 years after making the commitment and just before it's going to rise. 3.5% of GDP on direct spending and maybe another 1.5% on other spending, a total of 5% of GDP. How confident are you Canada can hit that likely new target, and what assurance did you get from the Prime Minister on that?
Yes, well, I'm fairly confident that Canada and the whole of the alliance can do this. It is important because we have to protect ourselves against our adversaries, so like Russia, but also China, which is increasingly building up its armed forces. So we have to make sure we have what we need to defend ourselves. And with the 2%, we simply cannot going forward defend ourselves. Yes, today, but not in 3 to 5 years. So therefore, we have to ramp up the defense spending. And we will come to a decision next week in The Hague. I'm fairly confident we will get there.
You said recently, Secretary General, that you thought that within 5 years, Russia would be able to launch an attack against NATO countries, either in Eastern Europe or elsewhere. Do you think that is their intention to do that within 5 years, or they just might have the capacity to do that within 5 years?
It's very difficult to exactly get into the head of Vladimir Putin. I stopped a long time ago to do that. But clearly we have to be ready for every eventuality. We know that China is building up its armed forces. They're not doing that only for the parades in Beijing. They want to do something with all those ships and fighter jets, etc. We know the direct threat, of course, there is China towards Taiwan. And the wider Indo-Pacific. And we know, of course, what Putin, as we speak, is doing in Ukraine last night. Again, targeting innocent civilians in Kiev. Many people dying, many more people seriously wounded. So this is continuing. So we have to stand prepared to make sure that our deterrence is such that he will never, ever try to attack us.
So on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, just for a second there, Secretary General, the drone strike, the drone attack that Ukraine launched against the strategic bomber fleet of Russia took out about 40% of its capacity, I believe. Obviously good news in this conflict, good news for NATO, but how quickly do you think Russia can replenish that and rebuild?
Well, of course, this was a very important development 2 weeks ago, and we all applaud what Ukraine did on that Sunday, which was well prepared in total secrecy for many months. So this was a big operation hitting at Russia's capability to again target innocent civilians in cities and communities inside Ukraine. So they are absolutely these are absolutely justifiable targets. It is difficult to exactly assess how long it will take for the Russians to reconstitute that particular base of capabilities. But no doubt they will try to do that. But this is a significant hit at Russia's capabilities to target innocent civilians in Ukraine.
You mentioned the attacks on Kyiv directly. Russia always seems to do this, whether it's a G7 summit or a NATO summit. They accelerate actions and targeting often of civilian infrastructure. We saw Canada announce today an extra $2 billion in military support for Ukraine, a $2.3 billion loan for broader governmental support. I just wonder what your thoughts are, sir, on the overall level of support Ukraine has at this point in the conflict, especially with the changing nature of things in the United States.
Well, clearly the allies are committed to continue supplying Ukraine with what they need. So over the first 3 months of this year, it was about 20 billion euros, so about 23, 24 billion US dollars being pledged for Ukraine. And that is a bigger amount than last year over the same 3 months. So we are really maintaining that level of support. And Canada, indeed, is absolutely stepping up here and doing a lot to support Ukraine. And you are also leading the Forward Land Force in Latvia. So Canada is providing a lot of support to NATO generally, but also particularly when it comes to keeping Ukraine in the fight.
What's your sense of where things stand with the United States right now, Secretary General? Donald Trump left the summit without meeting with you, without meeting with President Zelensky. Did the U.S. officials give you any reassurance on their commitment to NATO and their commitment to Ukraine at the summit?
Absolutely. I've spoken so many times now with President Trump, and of course he will be at the NATO summit next week. We will have ample time to sit down. There was no meeting foreseen at this meeting between me and President Trump because we will meet each other extensively next week. President Trump in the US is completely committed to NATO, completely committed to Article 5. The attack on one is an attack on all clause in the NATO articles of Washington Treaty, so there is no doubt. But what they do expect, of course, is for the allies outside the US to step up in terms of defense spending, to equalize with what the US is spending. And we have to do that because to reach these targets, our capability targets, we have to bring it up to about 3.5%, which at the same time will equalize the spending in Canada and in Europe with the United States. So that creates a stronger, a more equal, a more strongly based alliance going forward.
But the defense of Ukraine itself, sir, what are your thoughts on where the United States is on this? Because there is another conflict that they may become embroiled in, or that's brewing today between Israel and Iran. What's your sense of just how committed the Trump administration is right now to President Zelensky and his people's cause?
I believe they are. We have seen President Trump breaking the deadlock with President Putin by starting these direct talks. I think that was particularly important because it has to be the United States, being such a powerful ally, to have those direct talks with the Russian president. So I applaud that. I commend him for this. And obviously we all want this to go faster, but this always takes time. It is a step-by-step approach. But I really sense in my conversation with President Trump that he is totally committed to bring the fight in Ukraine, this unprovoked war of aggression by the Russians against Ukraine, to a durable, towards a lasting peace, by which the Russians will never try to attack Ukraine again in the future.
So, Secretary General, I know you have to go, but if I can indulge you for just one more question. President Trump left this summit. He's in the Situation Room in Washington, monitoring what's happening between Israel and Iran. There is reporting suggesting America might be prepared to join the war or play a direct role in this conflict. What are your thoughts on the possibility of a core key NATO member potentially getting involved in the war between Israel and Iran directly?
Well, as you know, NATO concentrates on the Euro-Atlantic. The current situation between Israel and Iran is not part of what NATO is working on, but individual allies are navigating this crisis, including the United States. This is a rapidly developing situation, so I'm a bit hesitant to comment on that, and let's await the situation over the next 24 and 48 hours.
Okay. And Secretary General, Canada is getting ready, it looks like, to join the Rearm Europe initiative. What are your thoughts on what that would mean for the NATO alliance?
Well, I think everything which helps for Canada, the Europeans and the US to, one, make sure that we spend on the right stuff. Secondly, to really develop the defense industrial base in the US, in Canada, in Europe. I applaud that. So every initiative leading towards that direction has my full support.
Okay. Secretary General Mark Rutte, we appreciate your time on a very busy day at a very busy
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
And hope to see you next week. Bye-bye. Take care.